Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this. Welcome to the Local Women podcast. I'm your host, Joanna Denton, and I'm delighted to be here today with Tracy Watson, founder of Tracey Jane Interior Design. For the last 24 years, Tracy has been evolving her business from a purely fabric and textile shop to now a full-service interior design studio. Along the way, she's retrained. She's rebuilt, she's reimagined her business, all the while adapting to the market and the economic situation, and all the while remaining deeply aligned to her philosophy, which is this. It's design your home to be a wonderful place to live in, and then just get out there and live your life. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to talk about creating spaces that are fully aligned to who you are. We're going to talk about Tracy's journey from being someone who could do you a nice pair of curtains to now being a truly trusted advisor for her clients. And we're going to explore the importance of that, of trust and really building collaboration with your clients. Because if you want to survive in business as long as Tracy has, then you need to do that based on trust. So why don't we get started and say hello to Tracy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me, Joanna.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm looking forward to this because, to be honest, I don't know a lot about interior design. And I think in some ways, my first question is really, well, what is interior design as compared to just slapping a bit of paint up on a wall and just being a bit of a decorator?
Well, decorating is certainly a part of interior design, but the actual job of interior design is much bigger than that. Decorating is all about the aesthetics, whereas interior design is, you have to take into account the form and the function of a room. It's taking in all elements, so the interior designer will be involved from a much earlier stage of the development, whereas decorating would maybe just be about the actual curtains or the accessories and things like that. And obviously as an interior designer, you're involved in the initial meeting, designing the concept for the customer, project management, working with builders, architects, all different sorts of tradesmen, and then the actual implementation and installation. So it's a much bigger role as opposed to just the simple task of decorating. I say simple.
Simple is all relative,
yeah,
isn't it?
Exactly.
But you started your career, you did a textile degree and you kind of came into this. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into this? Why textiles in the first place? Why go into this? And then how have you evolved in both yourself and your career, your personal development, as well as the business over these last 24 years?
Well, I knew I always wanted to own my own business, and I'd done my degree and covered textiles and design as part of it, but it wasn't what I initially got my job in when I graduated. So my initial job was in sales and marketing. But then whenever I saw that the shop was for sale and I still had my interest in textiles and design, I thought, this is an opportunity, I could do this. When I bought the shop, it was very much a retail shop. So it was curtains, fabrics, bedding, cushions, all the accessories. And then over time, mostly really the last 10 to 14 years, it's evolved into interior design because the market has kind of demanded that. That's one of the reasons the market has moved in that area. And with the internet and things like that, the business has kind of been forced to adapt and to make those changes, and that's what made me want to go back and study interior design again, because I wanted to know all the elements and basically to advise my customers the best I could. And then the business has just turned into now a studio. So we've stripped it all back. It's less of retail. Everyone is still really welcome to come into the shop to browse and have a look around, but it's much more of a showroom with room sets and furniture, and gives people an idea of what we can do as a business. And I've got a showroom in Kilray and then also in Ballycastle as well.
One of the things you mentioned was the market, the market shifting and the internet and so on. And I have the impression that there's just so much noise out there for someone who wants to do something in their home and whatever else. There's so many sources of inspiration that I can imagine it just becomes noise. How do you help your clients just cut through the noise to back to basics, if you like, in terms of creating a space that's going to reflect who they are rather than attempting to be some kind of Instagram perfection?
That is an issue because people are bombarded at the minute with Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, TikTok, and they look at all these beautiful spaces, and sometimes it can be difficult to adapt that into their environment. But what I say to people is, if they're thinking about starting a project, or they're building a new home, or they have a renovation, keep a scrapbook or a on your computer even, of all the things you like. And you'll find that you can build up like a portfolio. And generally within that, you tend to like mostly the similar sort of things. And that gives you a little library of your taste. And then if you come to me, then it gives me, that's part of my brief. So if a customer comes to me, Instagram and Pinterest and all that can be helpful, because then it gives me a little window into what they like. And then I can funnel that down into their space and adapt that as best I can. Because sometimes it can be hard to put everything, and that's a mistake to do that. So I just kind of work through it with them to get the best result. Yeah.
Just between us gals, I mean, when I'm listening to you talking about this, I can imagine you must have had some horrors. Some people come to you and they've got, they've seen some Georgian house out in the countryside and they've seen all this thing, and they're coming to you and they're saying, okay, well, my wee flat, it's just down, East Belfast, and it's like nice little boxes and so on. So how can you make my Georgian house dream come true in my flat? So how do you then guide them from that? Because I love this idea of this scrapbook portfolio, this library of taste. Mm-hmm. And I can imagine as well, sometimes their ideas are maybe not doable. So how do you use your kind of your people skills to help them see the light? And
well, I suppose you build up a rapport with people, and you want to give them as best you can what they're looking for within their space. And quite often it isn't even about the style that they like. Quite often people just don't understand the space they have. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, that the size of the room they have, and they want to fit in, 10 people, and dining table, living place, study area. There's a lot of things on a wish list and the space just can't take it. So then it's just guiding them. Basically, it's spending time with them, showing them what they can have. I think if you tell people what they can't have, then that's maybe not the best way. But if you can show them what they can have within their space, and the best way, the layout that they can have, once they see that picture, I kind of guide them and give them the best advice I can. And I've never had anyone really, whenever they see the first, say, mood boards and drawings that we do, they generally. There's always tweaks, obviously, but mostly they're visual. So they once they see it within their space, they love it. So it's just about giving them as best they can, and not giving them what they want, as close to what they want. Yeah,
I love that. So this sounds also almost like there's an element of psychology in this, and kind of guiding them and being kind with them, but going to the truth. Because I think one of the things that you mentioned when we were preparing for this was that your philosophy is really about creating a space, but then just getting on and living life. And that really struck me, just insofar as, a lot of the work that I do with my clients is about helping them remember who they already are, and that's enough. But maybe I would love to hear more about that philosophy, that aspect of, getting out and living your life. And where's that come from, and what would you put that down to?
Well, when people come to me to design their home, obviously they've got their own ideas and things like that. And I always say to people, it's not my home I'm designing, it's your home I'm designing. So there is a bit of psychology, and I suppose it's something maybe that over with experience, when you first meet someone, you're trying to find out, get an impression of what's important to them. You've got the practicality things of how many's in a family, how do they live, where do they live, what way do they want to spend their leisure time and things like that. So you're building up a picture of this person or family life as a client, and then you're building that relationship with them.
It's about trust at the end of the day, because you've got it's the way it seems to me in business today. It's not enough just to have I can do you a nice set of curtains, but you've got to really have that longevity. You've got to build up that trust. You've got to be able to create that relationship with your clients. And some of your clients you work with right from the beginning, like even at the conception of their new of a new home or whatever else.
Yes, it's listening to the client. So whenever you first meet the client, like I say, you're trying to build up a picture of them, and listening to them is important. And as you say, there's a bit of psychology involved, and you're trying to get the best idea of them so that whenever you present to them their first concept or mood board or layout, you're wanting to get as close to that as what they have asked you for. In terms of actually, if you get that right, my view is if you do up your home and you get that right, and we implement that and the customer's really happy, that really should be them for the next 10 to 15 years. Yes, they can freshen it up with new cushions or a rug, but I think if you walk into a room or into your home and there's something annoying you, it's probably not right. It's because it's not right, or you've bought something and you've always known it wasn't right and the space just feels uncomfortable to you. But whenever you get it right, then it should just be about a sense of peace, and your home and your environment just comes that lovely sense of peace, and you get that almost subtly. You're just walking in and you've got this joy when you walk into your home, and then you go and you get on with the rest of your life, as opposed to always changing things and always swapping things. I don't think that's necessary. I really do think your environment's important. You talked about mental health and things like that, and I think we underestimate the power of a nice home for people and just a nice environment. And it doesn't have to be luxurious to do that, but it still can be clean, uncluttered, cozy, comfortable, and you just get that lovely sense of peace.
There's a real sense of kind of finding your way home to yourself when you walk in those four walls, and that's what home is about, isn't it?
Yeah, and you want to put people's personality on that. So whenever you're talking about getting to know the client, you want their personality. It's not my home, it's their home, and they'll maybe along the journey say little things that they're interested in, or you might pick up little quirks they have, and then you'll want to put a nod to that into their home.
So, what I'm hearing is like, you create this lovely space and get on with living your life, and that should be you for like the next 10, 15 years. But when I think about it, that's an interesting business model, because in some ways, arguably you're kind of working with people, you do a project and then don't see them for another 10, 15 years, but you've been going for like 24 years in this business. So particularly in a kind of high-end place in the market. So when you think about that as a business model, but you think about the longevity of your business, what do you put that down to? Because people are clearly coming back to you, and they're clearly, you're running a very successful business for a very long time. So what do you think have been maybe the lessons that you've learned, or how would you advise other people that are looking at you for inspiration and wondering how you've done it?
One of my core things is, and it's very important to me, the honesty and integrity of a business. And I would always be really transparent with my clients and customers and be upfront with them. And I'm a big believer in that if you, especially whenever you're maybe working with a client with larger projects, you could be working with a client for over a year, so you really get to know people over that length of time. So, and some have become really close friends as a result of that as well. So it's important that you are upfront and honest, and that you're clear about your role, and that everybody's clear about what to expect. I think it's important that people are aware of the process so that there's no surprises. People don't like surprises, and I don't like surprises. So you want to kind of guide them along the journey. And in terms of, I have a lot of help and support as well. You've got quality suppliers, luxury brands and things like that sustain the business. So that's important. I've got a team behind me. We've got an interior architect who does a lot of our CAD and drawings and things like that.
A lot of your CAD?
Well, CAD is, that's something that has evolved over the last while as well. CAD's computer-aided design. Right. So kind of bringing your plan to life. So now people can actually see their room before it's actually built or designed. So she does a lot of that, and a lot of the background work, and a lot of help and support with just with the general projects. And then I've got a home stylist who's really talented and has a great flair for all the little accessories and touches, and brilliant with the room layouts as well, but just has a real flair for adding those little special touches to people's homes. I've also got a good business partner with Ballycastle Home Care. They have a luxury kind of kitchen and bathroom business, so my partnership with them allows me to have another showroom with them, and then it means I'm dressing the kitchens and bathrooms, and it means together we can kind of build a whole house for people. So, and in terms of as an interior designer, getting in at the initial stage is the best stage, because you're getting a feel for the client straight away. You're guiding them, if things have to be changed in a plan, you can do that at that stage. If sometimes it can be something as simple as a window moving, or a window getting smaller can allow their kitchen to be better. It's really strange, but it's exciting to get the initial plan and be involved at that stage. And it just means, like I say, together we can do the whole project for people. I suppose it's been a road of hard work as well. People can look at interior design and think, they look at the pretty picture and think it can be easy, but there's a lot of hard work and you need a big team of people.
I wanted to pick up on one thing that you mentioned, the computer-aided design.
Yes.
Because I'm curious, we've talked a lot about, over the last 25 years, how the market has shifted, particularly with the internet and everything else. If you project yourself going forward to the next 10, 15 years, what are you seeing as the future of it, particularly when we've got AI, particularly when we've got the technology and so on? What do you see in the future for this industry and for the market?
Yeah, I think technology is definitely going to become an even bigger part. We already do our mood boards digitally. Mm-hmm. So whenever a customer comes to us, we present to them on an A3 sheet where they've got their room layouts, their furniture, and then we actually have the fabric sample sitting there. So it's a wee bit of a combination of the digital mood board and then the actual soft fabrics. As time goes on, people have become more accustomed to wanting to see something. And even with our own suppliers, you can quite often go on to their websites and basically pick a chair or a sofa and see what that looks like within a different fabric, a different leg finish. I can just see that becoming more and more, exploding more. And with AI, people have the expectation where they want to see nearly the room before it's built. You already have the TV programs with the virtual reality.
Yes.
I mean, and they're amazing. Like, that's just amazing. And I think that is actually going to come down to the everyday customer. That's a bit away yet for the everyday customer, but it's not that far away. And in terms of the showrooms and things, people want to see the most up-to-date. The expectations have got higher, that people want to see the most up-to-date styles and kitchens, bathrooms, they want to see the whole thing done for them. So I can see that the AI is just going to explode, really. Yeah.
But we can only hope that there will always be a need for a human at the end of the day.
People still need guidance, because not everybody's an expert on room layouts and how you pull the thing together. And it goes back to that thing, the more people see and the more choice they have, sometimes they become overwhelmed with it.
Absolutely.
And looking at your room, and it can look so easy to look at that and think, I'm just going to put that with that. But there's so much more to it, and that's where the interior design comes in. The paint, yes, your curtain fabrics are all very important, but it has to match your sofa and it has to match your flooring and your lighting has to be right. And, you have to consider, are you going to colour drench your room? So it's just all the little details that make it, perfect, really. Yeah, and perfect for you.
Perfect for you.
Perfect for you, right. Because perfection is, perfect for you, the client. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of perfect for you rather than perfect for Instagram. It's not, it's not about this kind of fakery or illusion. It's about real life. It's real human beings living in real spaces.
Yes, because that's the only thing about sometimes whenever we do an interior for someone and you're wanting a photograph taken, that's a different photograph from what it is whenever they've maybe lived there for a couple of weeks, because you want some of their personal touches.
Sure.
And sometimes the photographers will come in and they'll be like, I want to move their personal things, and you're thinking, but that's
where they're living.
That's their personality in their home. So yeah.
It's about remembering there's a human being at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Our homes are very important to us. Are we havens,
Well, we're going to start wrapping up, but I just wanted to ask one last question. For someone maybe listening to this that's thinking, oh God, having a full interior design, somebody come in and do that is maybe beyond their budget. What would be maybe one piece of advice that you would give someone who had maybe started to pull together that scrapbook and had started to have an idea of what their taste was, but what would you give them as their first next step to creating something that really speaks to them?
I think an inexpensive thing to do is getting your paint colours right. It's so vital to make the right paint colour choices, because it can just dramatically change a room or an interior or your home. So even if you can just afford to get advice on your paint colours, or say you're building your house, even to get advice on that overall layout of the room, that's a really vital point. And you can never really get an interior designer too soon. Even if your architect's drawn up the first initial plans, it's really good to maybe get an interior designer to look at that,
right,
and kind of just say, are the doors, windows, things all in the right place? Because they might have, maybe in a very short meeting, they can just spot something that can kind of elevate the space. But if it's just a renovation or a room you want to do, I think focus on the paint colours and your room layout. It's important to get the right size of furniture, because furniture is such a big investment for people. So nothing's inexpensive anymore. Everything you go to buy, and people have the concept that interior design is expensive, and it can be at a certain level. But really, in terms of getting the space right, that's a vital and a real worth investment.
Well, listen, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up here, but I think what we've heard today from Tracy is that if you want to have a long-term business that lasts for 24 years or more, then you need to make sure you've got transparency with your clients, really strong partnerships, and a team around you where you recognize and play to the strengths of members in your team. But above all, you really need to create trust between yourself and the client, listening to what they want, delivering on what you promise. And when it comes to our interior design, when it comes to the spaces that we're living in, at the end of the day, it's about finding your way home to yourself, living in a lovely space that really reflects who you truly are, because you're already enough, and that should just reflect it. So I'm going to sign off with good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're listening. This has been me, Joanna Denton, and you, Tracy Watson.
Thank you so much
for listening, and see you next time. Thank you.